and welcome to Your New Jersey. I'm Lisa Marie Falbo. On today's show, we profile the life of New Jersey media legend Chaunce Hayden. For decades, Chaunce served as an entertainment journalist and gained fame for his unfiltered celebrity interviews, notably as an editor of Steppin' Out magazine. He's also hosted radio and television shows, delving into pop culture and celebrity topics. After a long career, Chaunce found redemption in a small country village in Ireland, where he searched for and found his daughter Poppy. Chaunce is here to tell us more about his illustrious life. Chaunce, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here today, but I want to start from the beginning. How did a Jersey boy like you wind up in the wacky world of entertainment?
It was 1989, and I was selling chemistry analyzer parts. You know, the things that check your blood, the machines that tell you your cholesterol and all that stuff. That's what I was doing. And I was dating this girl who told me that she could take her knee, and she was so flexible, and throw it over the top of my head while we were watching TV. And I said, don't do it. I don't think you can do it. Don't even try. She tries, and she cracks my skull open, like a hammer hitting my forehead. So I'm in the hospital for 2 weeks with a fractured skull. And the day I get out, the neurosurgeon said, but you had a pretty severe head injury. Whatever you do, don't bump your head for like a year. Don't do anything to bump your head. I said, I won't. And I went home, and the first thing I noticed was that my speakers that were up on the wall, the plug was out at the bottom up under the couch on the floor. So I got on my hands and knees. I went to plug in the speaker, and the giant wooden box up in the ceiling fell down and cracked my head open. So a half hour after leaving the hospital with a fractured skull, I was back in again, and the surgeon just looked at me, and he couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that his last words were to me, don't bump your head. And now I have a fractured skull again. So I had pretty bad brain damage from that. And I couldn't work anymore. And I was trying to learn to get I couldn't speak. My motor functions were off. So they had me painting to try to learn to get my brain wired right again. And while I was painting, I became obsessed with the singer Sinead O'Connor. She had just come out. She was so big, and that bald head and those big doe eyes. And then one day I realized she was going to be playing New Jersey was then the Garden State Arts Center. Now I think it's PNC. I wanted to meet her. I had to meet her. So I'm like, what could I do to meet this woman, Sinead O'Connor, who I have a crush on? So, and remember, this is before the internet and before computers and all that stuff. So I typed a letter to a publicist and faxed it to her saying I was a journalist looking to do a cover story on her. Total lie, just seeing what would happen if I said that to the publicist. And she wrote back and said, oh, it's for a cover story. I said, yes. She goes, then I'm going to have you sit down with Sinead O'Connor for an hour before the show. And all I was a stalker, a crazed stalker with brain damage. And now I'm going to meet Sinead O'Connor. I couldn't believe it was happening. It was that easy. And so I went backstage and I did an interview, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I've never done anything like this before in my life. I was just a fan who snuck his way backstage. So that was the night that she refused to sing if they played the Star Spangled Banner before the show, because it was right when the Gulf War had started, and there was a lot of patriotism in America. And so it made all the news. So I went to this little giveaway penny saver called Stepping Out that you would find on the top of cigarette machines in bars. And I said, do you want this interview? Would you publish it? And they said, of course we publish it. We'll put it on the cover. And I'm like, are you kidding? And they're like, no, but we can't pay you anything, but we'll put your name on the cover too, saying by Chaunce Hayden. So I said, okay. And so the next week there was my interview with Sinead O'Connor with my name, and everyone was talking about it. That made the news. All the newspapers were talking about the Chaunce Hayden Sinead O'Connor interview. So the publisher said, can you do this every week? Our ad sales have gone through the roof. Everyone's calling. They want to know about stepping out. I said, it's so easy. You just send a fax and yes, I can do this every week. And for the next 22 years, that's what I did every week. I interviewed a celebrity.
And you interviewed them all. And we have to tell our viewers, you mentioned fax machine and all kinds of things that just aren't done anymore. I mean, this was before the age of social media, email, cell phones. Yes.
Way before. Yes.
You weaseled your way in, and obviously it was all meant to be because the stars aligned in so many different ways. Thank you,
But
Brain
I'll tell
Injury.
you, it wouldn't happen today because
No.
the reason it could happen back then, there was no way of vetting me. You couldn't Google my name. You couldn't Google stepping out and learn that it's a penny saver. There was no way of knowing. It was just taking my word over the phone. So whenever I wanted an interview, I'd say it's a cover story for a magazine in New York. I'd say New York, not New Jersey, called Stepping Out. And they'd say, it's a cover. I'd say, yes. They hear magazine, they hear cover, and it was an automatic yes to almost anyone I wanted. And that went on for years like that. That's what got me my start. There was just no way of vetting me. Today, in 2 seconds, you could Google someone and say, no, that's not, you're not talking to my client. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're insane.
Exactly.
But in those days, you could get away with it. Yeah.
You totally could. Well, I got my start, I mean, back in 2009, so it was a little more technologically advanced, but I would sneak on red carpets in Manhattan to cover Hollywood premieres, charity galas. I just looked the part, I sounded the part. Oh, my name wasn't on the list, I emailed you. And I guess because I looked the part, they would let me on.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
The front door is never going to be open. You have to kick down the back door.
Absolutely.
And that was very smart of you. I did the same thing. I would find my way back into parties. I would get to know people. Everybody wants press. Everybody wants to be in the news. So if they think you're the person that can make that happen for them, they're going to connect with you. That's how it was back then, especially because today people, they have webs, they have their own social media. They have Facebook, they have X, they have Instagram. So a lot of people don't even need to talk to anyone. They can be their own publicist, their own voice, and have their own followers. But that wasn't the case for many, many years. The only voice you had was the voice that the journalists gave you.
You're right. I feel like those were the glory days because the celebrities, you didn't have the access that you have now. Now you know every nuance of their life, but back then they were shrouded in such mystery. And even places like New York City seemed so magical and Hollywood. And now...
And it was.
Yeah.
And it was. And not only that, but there were only so many outlets. There were only so many magazines. There were so many TV shows. There wasn't a lot. You know, if you were a publicist and you had a client that was paying you $10,000 a month to get them pressed, and there's only 10 magazines, how much, anything, they'll take anything they can get. So that truly did help me, is that I could offer them a cover. Anything I did was a cover. Even though it was a penny saver cover, it was a cover. And the client could go back to the publicist could go back to their client and say, I got a cover for you. I got a cover of a magazine for you. So it made it seem like they were earning their keep.
You did all the celebrity interviews for Stepping Out.
Yeah.
You eventually took over and owned Stepping Out. How did that come into play for you?
We started a New York version of Stepping Out that we put out in Manhattan. And I became the publisher of that magazine. So that's how we branched out. We had a New York version and a New Jersey version with basically the same editorial. It's just the advertising was different. So then my role increased at the magazine. And that lasted for a couple of years. And I saw things were changing. And lowbrow, read at the bar magazine wasn't working anymore. That it just wasn't working. And my vision was to start a magazine that was glossy, that was upscale, that you wouldn't be ashamed to take home and put it on your living room table. And that's when I started Metropolis Nights. And that lasted right up until the pandemic. And then the pandemic, it put a lot of the advertisers out of business. And of course, I existed by or through advertising, and that's what ended it for me. And at that point, I was at an age where I said, I think it's time to start writing about my life instead of chasing my life. And then I just stopped. Just one day I stopped and said, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. After 30 years, I'm done. I couldn't chase celebrities anymore. I couldn't ask another question. I've done over 3,000 celebrity interviews. And I was involved in so many scandals and so many things. I mean, if I told someone everything that happened to me, you would think I'm lying. You couldn't believe the things that happened to me.
New Jersey, we've got more summer wows under the sun than anyone. So come see what your wow's gonna be in the little state of New Jersey, where it's one wow after another, after another, after another. You get it. Find your wow at visitnj.org. New Jersey, little state, lotta.
Chauncey, I love that you turned your adventures into a series of books. Tell us all about them.
So when I decided to hang it up and stop asking questions, except to tell my daughter where are her socks. That's the questions I ask now. Where'd you put your other sock? I said, so I have 3,000 interviews. I said, I'm going to die and no one's going to know about these amazing Q&As that I've compiled. I said, that would be a sin for them just to go away. I have to do something. I have to share them. They have to be here when I'm gone. I want my daughter to know what I've done. So I started going through all my archives, and I'm realizing that I had gold. It was actually gold. I mean, the people, everybody you can imagine, anyone who you ever saw in the news over 30 years, I sat down and interviewed, and they're just sitting here. So I decided I'm going to transcribe and edit them, and I'm going to put them in a series of books. First book was Something You Said, was all the famous and infamous people, the mobsters, the criminals, the people who just made a lot of noise in the gossip pages. And that in itself is fascinating to look at that book and look at the names and read the interviews.
Let me stop you right there. Of all the names that are going to be featured in that, the one that jumps out, obviously, is Donald Trump, because you had access to him way before his political life when he was the influencer, right? I mean, when you thought rich back in the 80s and 90s, it was Donald Trump. Donald
Trump loved me. You have to understand, he's such a narcissist and always loved getting his name in the paper. He loved it didn't matter what the story was. It didn't matter. Just make sure his name is in bold. And he knew I was the guy to do that for him. So whenever Donald had a story or something he wanted to share, he called me and said, Chauncey, can you do me a favor? Can you get this in the newspaper? Can you do this? Can you do that? So I was always helping him. And whenever I wanted an interview, he always said yes. One day, a girl called my office and said, I want to tell you a story about your friend Donald Trump. I just went on a date with him and it didn't go very well. And I'd like to tell my story. And I said, so you want to do a story about what's it like going on a date with Donald Trump? And she goes, yes, I will tell you every detail of what it's like dating Donald Trump, a night out with Donald Trump. And I thought that was a great idea for a story. So I did the interview with her, and then I fact-checked it with Donald. I sent it to his office and said, if any of this isn't true, let me know. So it's 3 a.m. and my phone rings. And it's Donald Trump. He called me at home. So I recorded it to make sure that I didn't forget what he was saying. And he said, Chauncey, I never dated this girl. I never dated her. She's lying. And I said, but Donald, I have pictures. I have photos of you guys on the date. He goes, yeah, well, she's a stalker. She calls my office all the time. So I went out with her just so she'd stop calling you. And the story just kept changing and changing. And it went all these different directions. And the story ended up on YouTube, and the call ended up on YouTube. So today, if anyone wants to hear this call, it's fascinating to hear the back and forth. And you have to realize this is 3 a.m. of Donald Trump trying to get me to kill a story. So it's legendary.
It's legendary in that it's set to who he is now.
Yeah, who would have thought that Donald Trump was going to be president? And here he is calling me in the middle of the night to kill stories. And this is the path he and I took in our lives. You know, I ended up in Ireland and he ended up in the White House.
You cannot make it up. Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, for sure, especially when it comes to you, Chauncey.
Yeah.
With all of these celebrities, though, you had access to them through the Howard Stern show.
Well, yes and no. The Howard Stern show actually hurt me because I did some crazy things on the Howard Stern show. I wouldn't change 1 minute of the Howard Stern show. It was 18 years I was on that show, and some of the most fun, exciting times of my life. But when you're trying to interview an A-list celebrity, being on the Howard Stern show that morning doesn't do anything getting publicists to say, yeah, this is the guy I want my client to talk to. When I got banned from the Howard Stern show, I was better off.
Well, if you want to talk about differences in people between the 80s and 90s versus now, Howard kind of flipped, right? Because now he plays it much safer than he obviously did during those K-Rock days.
Yeah, he did. Well, he had to. He had to. If Howard didn't flip, he wouldn't be on the air right now. He'd be canceled.
Who is the most prominent New Jersey celebrity that you featured?
I would say Bruce Springsteen would probably be the biggest. I had to think about that for a second. Well, a lot of celebrities aren't from New Jersey, but they moved to New Jersey. But I would say Bruce Springsteen is probably the most famous Jersey guy that I was able to do an interview with.
So Chauncey, the second book, The Legends of Comedy, 30 Years of Interviews, features 50 interviews with the most influential comics of the 20th century. Oh, I am sure that is chock full of interesting tidbits.
It is. And sadly, when I was writing that book, a lot of them are dead. They're dropping like flyers. You know, Joan Rivers, Gilbert Gottfried, there was a couple that aren't alive anymore. It's kind of sad. But yeah, it's actually 51. I added one more. And then after that, I did music. So it's 50 stars from the music world: hip hop, rock, punk, grunge, dance, country. So many people, and each one is a different book. I was going to put them all into one book, but I said this is too many names. I don't want to leave so many people out. So I made 3 books, a trilogy, and I just finished the music book. But here's the thing. I was ready to self-publish. A lot of people do that today. They sell their books on Amazon, right? You write a book and you sell it on Amazon and you get all the money. And it's a great way to write a book. But right as I was getting ready to do that, I got a call from an agent, Terry Wolf from AKA Literary Agency, said, don't do it. Stop what you're doing. I can sell these books for you all over the world. You know, I can sign you to a publisher. So right when I was ready to release them, it all came to a stop. So right now they're being shopped to a publisher, so I can't sell them, and it's driving me crazy because they're finished and I want to get them out there, but it's out of my hands now. Now it's up to my agent to get them out there, and she's great, so I'm sure she will. But it's very frustrating to have them finished, and I can't sell them. It's killing me.
When they are sold, you will be on a press tour like you wouldn't believe, getting these out there all over the world.
Oh,
so rest up and get ready, because that's what I see for you.
Well, that's what she says. So we'll see. But it's very exciting. It's great just to finish them. And then the final book, which I'm about to begin, is my story of coming to Ireland. You know, it's called Monaghan Redemption, and it really tells the story of a guy who was lost, totally lost, living in New Jersey and New York, and found his way back through a little girl in Ireland. And it's a funny, sad, touching story that will draw every emotion you can think of, you know, during the process of how all this played out.
Chauncey, you clearly lived an epic life, but more recently, you embarked on a journey overseas that honestly is right out of Hollywood. How did you wind up in Ireland?
I came to Ireland looking for my little daughter. And it's a very long story, and it's in the middle of being turned into a screenplay. It's in the early stages of that. But I came here looking for my daughter, not knowing where she was, not knowing her, not knowing anything except that I had this little girl living here that was mine, that was part of me. So after a lot of soul searching, living in New Jersey, and knowing that there was a child here that was my daughter, I made the decision to sell off or give away everything I owned, and I bought a one-way plane ticket to Ireland and began my search, looking for her. And it was quite a journey. It really was a journey.
Yeah, I mean, you were in courts in a different country. Yeah.
I showed up the first day and went to the courthouse and said, I'm the father of this girl, and where do I sign the papers? How do I see a judge? You know, and they looked at me like I had three eyes. But that's how it began. And I every month I was in court, you know, and figuring out the Irish family court system and all the complexities of it, and the culture. Just living in a little town, a little village in Ireland, and understanding what life is like here, let alone going through the anxiety and all the things that come with trying to win access to a child in a court, but do it in another country, especially a country like Ireland. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable, and it was soul searching, and it changed my life. It changed my life in so many ways. I'm a much better person today than I was 7 years ago when I came here.
It's hard to believe that story unfolded 7 years ago, because I remember when you moved out there and you went searching for your beloved Poppy.
Literally knocking on doors saying, do you know this girl? And people are probably watching this going, there's a lot more to the story. We're not getting, and it's a very long story. You don't have enough time, but basically knocking on doors saying, do you know where I can find this girl? You know, and not knowing what the reaction would be. And the initial reaction was not good. The initial reaction was, go home. You know, you're not wanted here. You're never going to see your daughter. You know, go away. And I had to overcome that and had to prove myself to the mother of my child, and also to myself and to my child, who didn't even know she had a father. And the process of learning about my daughter and her learning about me and finding out who I was. It took 3 years before she even knew I was her father. To her, I was just a guy with a funny accent that she had to see once a week. And we slowly had to tell her, that crazy guy, you know, with that accent is your dad. And I had to learn what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a father, what it meant to be responsible for someone else other than yourself. It's a remarkable story. It really is.
Well, Chauncey, this was supposed to be a segment of your New Jersey. We turned it into a full show because I can talk to you for days, and you have stories for days and years and years. And
I have too many stories, I know.
No, but it's so entertaining. You are a rock star, and I just so appreciate you calling in to us. You know, I guess it's like midnight out there at this point.
I'm zooming into you.
Yes.
Zooming in.
Yes, zooming in. That is the terminology.
In 20 years, I'll be able to physically be there. It'll be like
Beam
Star
you
Trek.
here. Exactly.
Just beam me in. Yes.
But you are a New Jersey legend that transcends continents and oceans, and we are just so appreciative for you coming on here today. Where can people find out more about you, the books, and everything else?
Right now, the best way is to follow me on social media. So on X, it's just Chaunce Hayden. No Y in Chauncey, by the way. It's CHAUNCEHAYDEN. And the same thing for Facebook. And for Instagram, it's Chaunce Hayden 100. So if you follow me, I'm always giving updates. You know, I'm constantly posting about what's going on in my life and what's up next. So you could find out that way. And when the book is actually in the stores, maybe we'll talk again.
Oh, we absolutely will. And I have to mention, unfiltered, by the way. You do not hold back in any which way, which is very appreciated.
No. My social media is not for the squeamish. No.
No, definitely not. Well, Chauncey, thank you so much. This was really special, and best of luck to you, and can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Your New Jersey. I'm Lisa Marie Falbo. We'll see you back here next week.
Summers in New Jersey were made to wow you. From sun and wows to fun and wows, and every wow in between. So come see what your wow's gonna be. New Jersey. It's one wow after another, after another, after another. You get it. Find your wow at visitnj.org. New Jersey, little state, lot of